Speaking of situations that feel out of control, the big story on the continent, M23 rebels now saying they've taken control of the city of Goma in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This follows an advance against the Congolese army. 9 South Africans, as you know by now, are among 13 soldiers killed in fierce fighting with the rebels. 2 of these South Africans were from the UN peacekeeping forces and the remaining 7 from the Southern African mission. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have quickly gained ground this month in the eastern parts of the DRC. The rebels had earlier ordered defending government forces to disarm and surrender, saying they were preparing to enter and take control. Following negotiations, the rebels had allowed army officers to leave Goma by boat for Bukavu. Now, Defense Minister Angie Motshekga and SANDF General Rudzani Maphwanya are among those who have sent their condolences to the families of the SANDF soldiers who were killed while holding off an attack by M23 rebels in Goma. In fact, the family of Calvin Moahi, one of the 9 soldiers, says they're struggling to come to terms with his passing.
Evening, 2 personnel from South African National Defence Force arrived at our house and unfortunately informed us that there was an attack and Louis was one of the victims. Not much details were shared because they also didn't have much. So we're hoping that maybe more clearer picture will come up maybe from today, after they contact their bases for the mission in DRC of what actually happened. But for now, at the moment, we are still clueless or still in the dark as to what really happened. Louis was a very energetic child who, very loving, a hard worker, very friendly person, a peacemaker actually. So from a very young age, his mother's cousin was a soldier who unfortunately passed on last year due to some circumstances. And then he fell in love with wanting to be a soldier from a very young age.
We'll be unpacking the situation in the DRC throughout the morning, and we start with the DA spokesperson for defense. That's Chris Hatting, who joins us now, as you can see, via our video link. Chris, it's great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for making time. So much has been said about how South Africa in particular got itself in this situation. The DA is calling for a parliamentary briefing on what's taking place in the DRC. What are some of the questions you want answered?
Well, we're actually now calling for more than a parliamentary briefing. We want a parliamentary debate on the issue. We want some answers. What we are confronted with, and our soldiers unfortunately are confronted with, is basically the effects of budget cuts over many years, decades actually. And they are obliged as soldiers to fulfill an unfunded mandate. This cannot happen. Our soldiers have been deployed, exposed without the necessary support, without close air support, without the right ammunition, without sufficient supplies. And at this very moment, it's a dire situation where they found themselves surrounded with ammunition running out, supplies running out, and we want answers. We want to know how could we continue to be in this situation? What happened to our intelligence about the tactical situation on the ground? How could the minister actually, in the circumstances, have gone to the DRC and to Goma if the information about what was unfolding was known, and it should have been known by our military intelligence. So we want answers, and we want to understand why out of 16 SADC nations, we have been there for, since 1999. 2 other nations are right there now. They are neighbors. That's Malawi and Tanzania. But the major neighbors, Zambia and Angola, is not participating. We've been, as South Africa, alone carrying the brunt of the costs and of the effort in the DRC missions. And why? We are not the only country affected by this. I would assume that the immediate neighbors have got more interest in a stable DRC than we have. Yes, we have an interest in a stable Southern Africa, but we cannot carry it alone anymore, not with the restrictions imposed by us by repeated severe budget cuts.
Sure. I know there are a few people calling for the soldiers, the SANDF that is, to be withdrawn, but I wonder if you reckon the solution is that simple, because as you rightly point out, I think South Africa has a huge interest in, of course, ensuring that there is a stable region, especially when you take into context or consideration the role that South Africa plays in the region. I think we also need to be upfront about that.
Yeah, certainly, and withdrawal or reduced deployment gradually and moving out is what we are proposing. We should not be there. The reality is that we are now surrounded, and the only option for us to get out there with some honor is to negotiate a withdrawal, and that is for our SADC deployment. Our MONUSCO deployment obviously is in a different category. I see that the MONUSCO forces are actually disarming the DRC forces in the surrounded area, in the Goma area. So they are working there. But for the SADC forces, the question is how to get out of the surrounded area, because the M23 rebels and Rwanda are demanding a handing over of arms, etc., which is actually a surrender. Our best option out of the current situation is a negotiated withdrawal.
Sure. And do you think that is actually in the interest of the region and its stability?
Well, the interest in the interest of the region is stability, but there need to be. We haven't got the military power to enforce that. We lost a lot of our ability through the years. We are actually now in a defensive position. We cannot enforce anything there. The solution is a political solution and not a military one anymore. Specifically in the situation we found ourselves in. There are people who say we can never surrender, we can never withdraw, we have to fight. But do they understand what they mean at all costs? How many more body bags do they think we will require if we fight until the last man standing? This is where leadership comes in. And we haven't seen that around a lot in the last period. We need to assess the situation, and we should have been done all along, every day, every hour as things unfold. But now the options for us are negotiate and exit from the area.
Right. It's interesting you say that the solution now is a political one more than anything else. I mean, there'd been all kinds of commentary around how part of what's taking place in the DRC is the protection of personal mining interests. I don't know how true that is, but if it were to be true, I imagine a political solution wouldn't be enough.
Well, those rumors have been around for a long, long time, and they are South African mining interests in the DRC. And yes, we have trade in the mining industry in that area. Whether that is enough to deploy our forces into the area, I don't think it is enough. If that was the motivation, it's actually a scandal.
Sure. All right. Chris Hattingh, thanks very much indeed for giving us your reaction. Do appreciate it. Chris speaks for military and defense issues for the Democratic Alliance. Once again, thanks very much indeed. As mentioned, we'll be unpacking what's taking place in the DRC throughout the morning. So stick around at 10 o'clock. We'll get you a sense of the significance of the M23 rebels' movement into Goma and what, in fact, the situation may mean, especially for the SANDF and other soldiers, of course, who are part of MONUSCO and the SADC mission trying to bring stability to that part of the country.